Recording on. So yesterday we started talking about some of the fundamentals behind the digestive system. We talked a little bit about what happens to the food after we eat it. You have mechanical and chemical digestion happening beginning in your mouth. Mechanical would be the chewing. Chemical is the saliva. We have digestive enzymes. Then it moves down into your food tube, which is your esophagus, into your stomach, past the cardiac sphincter. And then in your stomach, it becomes kind of liquefied. We have all of this hydrochloric acid that liquefies the food, pre-disassembles. Then it moves to your small intestines, which is the sorting tables. They break apart the bonds and break the nutrients down into their most basic molecular structure. The parts of the nutrients that are broken down can be uploaded and sent to the liver for conversion. And the liver can either send that energy out to the body immediately for use, or send it to the storage unit to be used later. Once it passes through the small intestines, it goes to the colon, and the colon's job is just to house feces. But it also resorbs water, because the Chipotle burrito, by the time it gets to your colon, it's still liquid. And we don't want to be losing all of that water. That's going to cause you to be dehydrated. And so the colon is going to suck out all that excess water and gives us the nice, happy, healthy poops that we're all hopeful for. Is everybody okay with that fundamental idea?
It's like a sponge.
Kind of like a sponge, yes. It has very specialized blood vessels that help to suck out the water and put it back into your circulation. And that's why diarrhea in our patients is so dangerous. It's not the diarrhea that will kill our patients, it's the dehydration. Because the dehydration will cause your blood to become thick, it will cause your heart to have to work much harder, it will cause your kidneys to shut down. Dehydration is terrible, absolutely terrible for your body. So that's why we need to really monitor our diarrhea patients, especially those little guys. Those little guys with diarrhea, they'll get dehydrated super, super quick. So now we're just going to get into some terminology. This is just some basic terminology, and we're just dipping our toe into the water of nutrition. And then we'll get into our first nutrient, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, will be carbohydrates. And the way that I have this class set up is I've tried to make it into little manageable bite-sized pieces for testing. Rather than lecture over all of the energy-producing nutrients and then testing you over with one big test, what I've done is I've broken it down. So we'll lecture over carbohydrates, we'll do a carbohydrates test. We'll lecture over fats, we'll do a fats test. And so I've tried to break it up into more manageable chunks for you guys, so I'm not overwhelming you with just a ginormous amount of information on every test. So here we have some terminology. I'm just going to kind of go into the basics behind each of these, and I have some slides coming up that will definitively define each of these. But we're in nutrition class, kind of important that we know what the definition of nutrition is. And the definition of nutrition is basically something, a nutrient, that interacts with part of your body to do something positive, to do something good. It gives you energy, it gives you padding, like your adipose tissue. It is restructured into other things that can be used within your body. So nutrition is part of a nutrient that's interacting with your body to do something positive. And what a nutrient is a component of nutrition. I think I mentioned yesterday, we have 6 categories of nutrients. We have 3 that actively produce energy: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And we have 3 that do not produce energy: vitamins, minerals, and water. Now, just because they don't produce energy does not mean they are no less important. Nutrition really is a house of cards, If even one component is missing or is in an incorrect amount, the whole house will come crashing down. So everything has to be found in the exact right amounts in order for the body to be able to break down and utilize any of it. This is where some of those fad diets are so dangerous. Like, I think, did we talk about the keto diet yesterday? A little bit, where you're supposed to like completely remove carbohydrates from your diet. Can't do that. No, carbs are not bad for you. Now, there are different types of carbs. Carbohydrates are sugars. So there are some sugars that the body looks at them, can break them down, but those sugars do not go directly to the storage unit. Those are the ones that make you fat. And unfortunately, all of the food that tastes good has those kinds of sugars in it. We have other kinds of sugars that will be used immediately within the body, leaving nothing left over to go to the storage unit. So sugars in themselves are not bad. We just have to be eating the right kinds of sugars. And you can't take one of these components out of the diet completely, because then, like I said, the whole house of cards comes crashing down. Clinical nutrition is what you guys as technicians are going to be most concerned with. Clinical nutrition is where we look at an individual patient and we tailor a nutritional support for that patient. We look at what are their needs, and then we are able to tailor a nutritional support program to meet those needs. And that's really all that nutrition is. What are we trying to accomplish, and what can we use to accomplish that thing? That's it. That's all we're looking at. The difference between digestible and bioavailable. Digestibility is how easy is it for your body to break stuff down? How easy is it to get the Legos apart? The higher the digestibility, the easier it is to break apart. The lower the digestibility, the more difficult it is to break them apart. So again, I got my filet mignon, I got my McDonald's hamburger. This one, the filet, very easy to break apart. So this would be said to have a high or a low digestibility. If it's very easy to break apart, it's highly digestible. McDonald's hamburger, you're not getting those Legos apart for nothing. So this one has a very low digestibility. So digestible is how easy is it for our bodies to break down. The harder it is for our bodies to break something down, the more energy we're having to use to simply do it. Bioavailable is how much, after the nutrient's been broken down, how much of it does our body actively use? Just because it's been made available does not necessarily mean our body's going to use it. So bioavailable, how much, what percentage of a nutrient does our body use? And digestible, how easy was it for our bodies to break it down? Let me give you an example. Let's talk about corn for a minute. Yeah.
We talked about this last.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yes.
On the other side.
Corn is very difficult for your body to break down. So would we say it is high digestible or low digestible? It's got a low digestibility. And even the stuff that your body can break down, we don't use very much of it. So it has also a low bioavailability. Puppies are growing and are needing a tremendous amount of energy. So a puppy would need a food that is highly digestible and high bioavailable. Is everybody okay with those? Fabulous. To depolymerize is simply a fancy word for break the bond, for separating out the Legos. Energy is what we get from nutrition. Energy is measured in a measurement called a calorie. Calorie is just simply a measurement of energy. However many calories you take in versus however many calories your body uses will determine, are you putting stuff into the storage unit or taking it out. Right now, I have not yet eaten today. I didn't have time. So I have not eaten, but I'm still using energy. So what does that mean? It means that all of the energy that my body is needing is being pulled out of the storage unit. And hopefully, when enough stuff gets pulled out of the storage unit, what happens to the storage unit? It gets smaller, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Oh, this is my favorite word right here in nutrition, gluconeogenesis. That's a $5 medical term if I ever did see one. Let's break it down. Gluco, sugar, neo, new, genesis, beginning, formation, creation of. So gluconeogenesis is just the creation of new sugar. Glucose is the currency that our body is using. Everyone gets paid, and they're getting paid in glucose. And so we have two different ways that we can accomplish this. External gluconeogenesis, meaning you are eating something, you are taking sugars in from the outside. You are taking nutrients in your meal, and it's getting converted into energy and being used immediately. Or what I'm doing right now before your very eyes is internal gluconeogenesis, meaning that I am breaking down stored fat in order to dump glucose into my bloodstream, making sure that everybody gets paid. So internal and external gluconeogenesis. And that definitely impacts cognitive function. What does cognitive mean? Yeah, I don't think any of you are cognitive right now. My goodness gracious, I don't think I've seen you guys this run down since before the break, and we've only been back for a day. What happened to you? You were so bright and shiny penny yesterday. You did yesterday too, and you guys were all over me yesterday.
We didn't really do anything. First, I think first period.
Yeah.
What happened first period?
She's so monotone.
She's so monotone, like videos, and so like it was like notes. That was really. And then videos, and then it was just like.
It's over the state.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's enough said. I was like, who are you talking about? I don't know any class that is like that. But then the minute you say OSHA, yeah. Ugh. OSHA.
I've been drained from that.
Yeah.
And I guess there's not a lot of voice.
There's not a whole lot you can do to make OSHA interesting. I'm sorry, but there isn't. You should have seen the amount of training that I had to do to become the OSHA safety officer here at VTI.
Only imagine.
Oh my God, you want to talk about just brain turn off. Holy smokes. I had to come up with all of our OSHA operating procedures. I had to write them all. So, and they have to be so detailed. I know I've gotten off of nutrition, but that's okay. This is kind of waking you guys up a little. Yeah, oh Lord. So they have to be detailed. And I mean detailed to where if we smell smoke, step 1, calmly announce to the room that you smell smoke. Step 2, assess the safety of the environment. Step 3, listen for a fire alarm. Step 4, should fire alarm be heard, follow the instructions of the appointed fire safety person nearest to you, which would be me. Step 5, pull the fire alarm if needed or warranted. Step 6, go to the parking lot in the holding pattern, wait for the fire department.
Do you ever have fire drills?
We do not have fire drills. Now, there have been a few cases, a few accidents that we set the building on fire, because we did not. But there has been once or twice where the surgery team has overpacked the autoclave. And the autoclave uses heat and moisture to sterilize the instruments. And if they didn't put in enough water and they overpack it, the paper drapes that they use begin to smoke. And then the whole building has to evacuate. We sit outside. We wait for the fire department to give us the all clear. It's a mess. It's an oogie mess.
Is it awkward when the insurance people have to come down?
Pretty awkward. And then it's even more awkward when the building manager rips us a new one for doing it yet again. Oh, geez. So we're very careful with that now. But I get it. OSHA is, oh gosh, snooze fest. Understood.
So none of you are cognitive right now.
Plus, haven't you guys already had lunch? So now you've eaten. The blood is being diverted to your GI tract to digest all your food. Oh gosh, I'm hitting an uphill battle at this point. Pretty much, yeah. I appreciate the honesty. Obesity. Obesity is something we're going to talk about quite a bit in this class because honestly, about 80% of our companion animals, cats and dogs, are clinically obese. It can range from just a little junk in the trunk, you know, just have to, you don't even have to change their diet, just feed them a little bit less, all the way up to clinical obesity. Clinical obesity is where they are so obese that other organ function is starting to become impacted. Their joints can't handle the weight, their heart can't pump the blood effectively, their body mass is too big. So obesity is something that we'll be talking about quite a bit because that is something that you are going to have to be educating your owner about on a pretty regular basis, which in itself is a little difficult. Because let me give you a little tech tip. You have a big old 5. We have a number scale for our obesity. 1 is completely emaciated, looks like a skeleton. And then you got your big old 5. Well, 9 times out of 10, if you've got a dog or a cat that is a big old 5, guess what the owner looks like? A big old 5. A big old 5. And it's really difficult to talk to an obese owner about an obese pet and not have them start projecting onto themselves, thinking that you're talking to them about them. So it gets a little dicey. We got to use some tact. Soluble is where we can break stuff down in fluid. It doesn't necessarily have to be water. We have things that are fat soluble. But soluble just means that we're breaking something down with the addition of something else. In fact, our vitamins, we have water-soluble and fat-soluble vitamins, meaning that your body can only break them down with water or fat. So we've got to add something to it in order to break them down. Antioxidant, I think we talked a little bit about this last term. Does anyone remember what an antioxidant stabilizes? Do what? I still can't hear you.
White blood cells.
Not your white blood cells. We need those. Foreign invaders are going to fight your white blood cells. Antioxidants stabilize this nasty little cheeky monkey called a free radical. And what a free radical is any time your body sustains damage, which is when? All of the time. All of the time you're getting damage. You're developing these free radicals that then have a domino effect and create more damage. Antioxidants will go in and stabilize the free radical and allow your body time to repair whatever damage has been done. Monosaccharide, somebody decipher that word for me. One sugar, a single sugar. Monosaccharide is what all of our sugars have to be broken down into. We talked a little bit yesterday about you poor people who are lactose intolerant. Lactose is a disaccharide, meaning there are two sugars bonded together. And we've got to break the bond and turn them into two individual monosaccharides. The monosaccharide, and the currency that our body uses happens to be a monosaccharide, glucose. Catabolism means to do what? To break something down. Cata, down, under, against, or beneath. Did you guys have the picture of the kangaroo from that term? Good job. Do what?
I have an irrational fear of kangaroos.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I had a picture when I used to teach medical terminology. I did have a picture of one, and it was just standing, and there was this cat. Some of the pictures that I use, quite honestly, for medical terminology, a little abstract. So for cata, I had this cat eating out of a bowl, and this kangaroo just looking at him like, hey, can I have a little bit of that? And so for cat, and you're like, what the hell does that have to do with cata? Where do kangaroos come from? Down under.
Oh, we have a grammar with that.
Down under, against, the kangaroo wanted to fight the cat, and the cat was beneath him. So every time I see that picture, I think down, under, against, and beneath. That's the way my brain works. But I'll stop talking about them now. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
Anabolism means to do what? To build up. If you think about some of our sports people, Fuller, damn Fuller. You guys are not, I forgot. I keep forgetting you guys are not Texans football people. We had two of our key players get caught doing steroids.
Oh, really?
Yep, bad. Well, does anyone know what kind of steroids sports people take? Yeah, what are they called? Anabolic steroids. So are they trying to slim down? No, they're trying to build up. So that's how I remember anabolic, build up. So catabolize, to break down, is what I'm doing to myself right now. My body is catabolizing my own tissue to provide energy. And then over the Christmas break, I definitely went into a state of anabolize, where I was building up tissue and not the good kind. So those are just two definition terminologies. So there's the true definition of nutrition. It is the science of an interaction of a nutrient with some part of an organism to produce a positive outcome. It's something that interacts with something live to do something good, is essentially what it is. It is both a mechanical and a chemical process. Mechanical would be including your chewing, your intestines physically sloshing everything around. The chemical would be like the digestive enzymes in your saliva, the acid in your stomach, the digestive enzymes that your pancreas creates, the gallbladder creating the bile. I don't remember. Did we talk about the gallbladder yesterday? The methamphetamine cook? Oh, okay. Let me back up for a second. Sometimes I gotta just shock you a little and see if you're paying attention. All right, I know we did talk about the pancreas. How he's got both endocrine and exocrine. Endocrine meaning into the blood. He creates insulin, which regulates your blood glucose. But he also creates two digestive enzymes that helps the intestines to break bonds. But we also got this guy that lives out behind the liver. And the liver is like the big mansion, right? Remember, it's a big fancy bank that's converting all stuff. The The gallbladder is like the guy that lives in the over the garage apartment out back. And his job is to take this component that the liver is creating called bile. And what the gallbladder does is he concentrates it. He super hyper concentrates it. And so what it kind of reminds me of, there was a show on a while back, you may or may not have seen it. It was called Breaking Bad. And it was the story of this high school chemistry teacher who got cancer and then becomes this like kingpin meth book. Yeah, it's a tragic story. But anyway, so what I'm thinking is that the gallbladder is over the garage apartment. I've got this guy who's just like cooking, concentrating meth. He's just making a concentration of it. But the problem is that he's housebound. He can't leave the apartment because he got the PO after him. But he got to get his product to the street, yo. And oh, come on, that was good.
That was great.
That was, yeah.
Alright, just help stay in character now.
All right, got to get his product to the street. Yo. I love it. So he's got this common bile duct, which is like the rain gutter. And so he just drops the little packets of meth down the rain gutter, and then people can come and pick them up. That's the common bile duct. And so the gallbladder is the meth cook. And this bile that he's concentrating helps us break apart also bonds like certain types of sugars. Has anyone in here had their gallbladder removed? Or know somebody that's had their gallbladder removed? So you have to be very, very careful and not eat certain types of sugars. If you have no gallbladder, you cannot eat things like melon, cantaloupe, strawberry. There are certain types of sugars in fruit.
Wine too, because I'm completely wine from the fact.
Well, you have wine made of grapes. It feels very sad for you.
No, I was
That's very sad for you. Now you're going to have to go on to something like a clear distilled, like a tequila
I'll
or
do beer, it's fine.
beer is fine. Yes. That's how you get your vegetables. Take in your hops. Get your hops.
I have a question about that then. So if I don't eat, so that's
It's burn.
so technically the gallbladder keeps the acid in there, kind of, right?
Yeah, so the liver creates the acid.
So what would it go? Just my stomach? Is that why I get like a constant pain? I don't have any food in my stomach or something like that?
Not so much because you have no food in your stomach. If you are hungry and you get pains in your stomach, it's because your body is not happy with you. When you get so hungry that you do get the
It's just
tummy
like
ache.
heartburn.
So that, because remember, where is your liver?
Yeah.
So now your liver is still creating the bile, but it has nowhere to concentrate it. And he's like, I don't know where to put this. I'm just going to get rid of it. And so he does. But he can't get it to the street. Come on, that was pitiful. He doesn't have the gallbladder anymore. And so on top of being have to be very careful with sugars, you do have a bigger chance of, it's not heartburn like acid burbling up into the esophagus. It's a residual pain from the liver.
Do you recommend like getting your gallbladder removed? Like gallstones?
Oh yeah, if you have gallstones, I would definitely recommend it. Obviously, I'm not a physician. But yeah, that bile, if it backs up, can start doing a lot of damage. And your liver is not something that you want to damage. Now, your liver does have a remarkable capacity to heal. In fact, your liver is one of the only organs that can regrow. This is insanity. Okay, so you've now, one of you has become a raging alcoholic. I'm not going to pick out one of you, but one of you is a raging alcoholic, and you damaged and scarred your liver. And you come to me and you say this, oh, I need some of your liver. I would first say, probably don't want my liver, but okay. They can do a partial liver transplant and just give you a tiny bit of my liver And over time, it's going to grow into a new liver. I know. That was the point.
Oh my god.
So that's the gallbladder.
I find it crazy. My doctor didn't tell me I wasn't even allowed to eat any of these stuff anymore.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be eating fruit, and I'm willing to bet that the pain is much greater when you eat fruit.
Probably. Because I eat a lot of fruit all the time.
Yeah, no, it's not all fruit. It's just some fruit, like cantaloupe. Melon is the one that steps up into my mind. But my whole point behind that's all part of our chemical digestive process.
So why is it, well, I guess, because of the sugars, but why strawberries?
It's just the type of sugar. So we've got a lot of different types of sugars. And these different sugars are like, we have, let me just throw out some examples. Like we have glucose, fructose, and galactose.
So which one is it with the taste like chocolate?
It's more the bond that they can't break, similar to a lactose intolerance. The nutrients is anything that we use to support life. As I said, we have 6 nutrient categories, 3 that produce energy, fats, carbs, and proteins. And we have 3 that don't produce energy, water, vitamins, and minerals. And what we are going to be looking at is clinical nutrition. Did you know that nutrition could be classified as a drug? Food can be classified as a medication. That's why it is the FDA, which is the what? Food and Drug Administration. The same group that oversees the drugs oversees the food. By definition, a drug is anything that you can use to either lessen clinical signs of an ailment or cure the ailment altogether. I have a headache, I take an Advil. My headache goes away. There are times when I can use nutrition to lessen symptoms of a physical ailment or heal the ailment altogether. And this is huge. This is so exciting. This is massive. So a great example of clinical nutrition impacting you as a pet owner. Cats. Elderly cats will develop one of 3 conditions: diabetes, kidney disease, hyperthyroidism. Let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes. Let's talk about it. So diabetes is where your pancreas is not producing insulin, and you cannot get the glucose out of the blood into the tissue. Nobody's getting paid. So what do I have to do? I have to inject insulin after or just before a meal. So you as a cat owner, has anyone in here ever had a diabetic cat? All right, so let me lay it out for you. So you as a pet owner, you have to give the insulin twice a day, and it has to be given 12 hours apart. So let's say during the week you give it at 5 o'clock in the morning when you wake up, and you give it again at 5 o'clock in the evening when you get home. Hey, guess what time you guys are waking up on Saturdays? 5 o'clock. Hey, on a Friday night after school, maybe you've had husbandry, and some of the husbandry team is like, hey, let's go out for some burpers. Like, obviously pre-COVID. But let's go out for some burpers. Guess who cannot go?
The underage kids.
Well, underage kids and the kids that have to go home to give their cat an injection. There is no more leaving for the weekend and just throwing down some extra food. Cats are the best pet ever because they're so independent. Now you got to either pay to have them medically boarded or pay to have a technician like yourself come in twice a day. Any of you guys want to make some bank? Start pet sitting, especially medical pet sitting. Usually it's anywhere, so you go visit, You play with the dog, you play with the cat, you give them medication, you feed them, whatever, what have you, takes you like half an hour, 45 minutes. People are charging anywhere between $15 and $30 per visit. Per visit. It's crazy. Okay, but what if so now we have an owner, you, who are starting to resent their pet. Well, what do you think happens to pets that start to be resenting? Yeah, they don't get taken care of. Suddenly you find yourself slipping. Oh, it's okay. I'll give him his injection at 7 when I get home. Oh, I'll just sleep in a little bit. I'll give him his injection at 9. And it doesn't work that way. Or people who start to resent their pets, get rid of the pet. Right? Pets are a companion. They're there to enhance our lives, not make them harder. Okay, but what if I told you that through simple clinical nutrition, I could completely erase the possibility that you have to give insulin ever again? I think that might be I feel like I'm in an infomercial. I think that might be something you'd be interested in. Get your life back. Get your life back. Through simple nutrition with one form of, it doesn't work with all diabetes, but through one form of diabetes, simply changing the diet will slow digestion, it will slow the uptake of glucose into the blood, and it will stop the body needing you to give it an insulin injection. Huzzah! Now, obviously, we didn't cure the diabetes, but we are now managing it. Drug. Digestible and bioavailable, I just talked about those. Digestibility is how easy is it for your body to break apart the Legos. Bioavailable is once the Legos are broken apart, how much of it is your body going to use? Okay, so why am I making you sit here 5 days a week listening to me drone on and on about nutrients, other than the fact that I love nutrition? I'm a certified nutritionalist, and I would probably be talking to you about this regardless. Now, I do not hate you. No, I do not. And I do try and make this as interesting as I can. You guys, you have no idea, you guys. You have no idea. You are coming into this profession at one of the most exciting, dynamic times in our professional history. I am jealous of you starting your career right now. Jealous. We have this thing, this invention, you may have heard of it, it's called the interweb. Sometimes they call it the internet. Okay, you're familiar with it. Good, good. Obviously, I kid. All right, so I'm going to date myself a little bit. I grew up in a time before internet. Some of you are like, Miss Huff, there was a time before internet. Yes, there was. If you were trying to think of a fun fact, or if you had a question on your mind, you were not able to pull this out of your pocket and immediately get the answer. You either didn't get the answer, or you had to wait until you researched it, go to the library, pick out a book. There was no such thing as a quick web search. It was awful. But then with the invention of this internet, honestly, it changed everything for us, good and bad, because people now had this kind of unlimited fountain of information. Some good, some not so good, because I don't know if you guys know this. I'm going to blow your minds here for just a second. Not everything on the internet is true. Oh, goodness gracious. I know, mind blown. But what started to happen back started a little bit before I went to college, is that people now have the ability to do research where they didn't before. We only really had 3 major pet food companies at the time. We had Hill Science Diet, Eukanuba, which was Iams, and Purina. That was it. Those were our choices. And of course, they were all feeding and creating their foods with the lowest base standard, meaning the bare minimum requirements. And then what started to happen is people started educating themselves and demanding quality. And then we saw something remarkable happen, is that the pet food companies had no choice but to meet that demand. And we started seeing a lot more research and development happening. We started seeing companies come up with new and innovative, we used to call them prescription diets, we now call them therapeutic diets, but coming up with new and interesting nutritional support. And it's continued. You go to the grocery now, there's an entire aisle of nothing but different brands of pet food. So you have way more choices, your clients have way more choices, and guess who they're coming to talk to when they get a new puppy? And they say, hey, what should I be feeding this puppy? Who are they talking to? You. You're gonna need to educate them about this information. Why is this food not recommended? Why is this food highly recommended? Has a lot to do with the nutrients, the quality, the bioavailability, the digestibility. And what ended up happening as a result of all of this research and development is we started seeing a massive extension of our pets' lives. Back, guys, 25 years ago, before a lot of you were alive, the average lifespan for a cat was 11. If you got 11 years out of a cat, you were doing pretty great. The average lifespan for a small breed dog, about the same, 10, 11 years old. Large and giant breed dog, average age was 5. 5. Guys, in less than a lifetime, in 25 years, when I was in college, where there were 3 life stages for a cat: kitten, adult, senior. In the time since I am not that old, okay? Seriously, I'm not that old. In the time since I graduated college, we had to add an extra life stage because they're living so much longer. Bam, because of this. That's exciting. We now have kitten, young adult, mature adult, and senior. And you know what? They're not even considered a senior until they hit over 11 years old. Average age for a cat now, 16. We added 5 years more onto their lives. The average lifespan for a small breed dog, 16. That's crazy because of this. And if that doesn't excite you, if in the course of my career, research, excuse me, research and development has extended the lives of our pets to that degree in my career, not my life, in my career. Imagine where we're going to be when your career is as mature as mine. Come on, if that doesn't get you excited for this career that you've chosen, holy smokes, that's amazing. That's exciting. So all of this research and development and all of these now new competing pet food companies has kind of taken all the guesswork out of it for us. They have, most companies have risen to the challenge of providing us with quality nutrition. I am going to be teaching you how to interpret a pet food label. The irritating and maddening thing about pet food bags is they put way more money into the marketing than they do the food, in most cases. There's a reason why you bought the pet food that you did, right? If I ask you, if I come up on you at the grocery and I'm like, hello, and you're like, what are you doing here? I say, hey, I see you're buying this certain brand of pet food. Why did you choose that one? I don't know. Packaging, marketing, price. But I need to teach you how to interpret the labels, interpret the tiny little kernel of information that is given to us. One of the big clues, I'll just give this one to you now, is one of the things I look at is how much do you have to feed? Because I make fun of Old Roy. Old Roy has got the nutritional value, it's the McDonald's of the pet food world. But it is certified as complete and balanced. How can that be? Well, Old Roy has very low digestibility. It's very hard for the gut to break down. It has a very low bioavailability. Even the stuff that gets broken down is not used. So what do I have to do? Feed more of it in order to get what the animal needs to maintain. So if I have pet food A, and I look at the feeding instructions, and for my size dog, let's say Maisie, it says feed 1 cup of this food per day. And I look at this food, and this food says feed that same size dog 2.5 cups per day. Which one do you think is the better quality? The one that you have to feed less of. So that's one of my biggest clues. Look at the feeding instructions. How much do you have to feed? This one might be a heck of a lot cheaper in the long, or in the short term rather. But you're feeding 2.5 times more, which means you're going through it 2.5 times faster. So ultimately, although you're saving money today, over a period of time, you're losing a large amount of money. And so this is one of the lessons I need you to put in the back of your mind, and that's what you're going to be talking to your owners about. Is why is it better to purchase the more expensive food if it's warranted? And what is the difference? So what? Oh yeah, we got to look at the label. And there's a lot, gosh, I got a frog in my throat. There's a lot of other information, but it's hidden and you have to interpret it. So I've got a whole lecture that I'm going to talk about as far as interpretation of pet food labels. But these new commercial diets now boost the immune system. They lengthen the life. They improve brain function. They help to slow the aging process. And that's huge. Everybody in here who has a pet knows that you give your right arm to have them live forever. Bentley was my soulmate. Bentley was the dog that I will never, ever, ever be able to replace. There will be a hole in my heart, a Bentley-sized hole in my heart for the rest of my life. He was my canine soulmate. I miss that dog every day, and it's been 3 years. If I could have extended his life by even a day, I don't know what amount I would pay for that. So all of this is really very exciting. Now, when we're looking at nutrition, again, it's not rocket science. We're looking at what factors are we possibly having involved with the amount of energy this pet needs, right? If the pet is very active, the amount of energy they're using goes up. If the pet is not active, the amount of energy goes down. And I'm just simply trying to match the amount of energy that the animal is needing. Now, during illness or injury, what do you think happens to the amount of energy that our animal needs? It goes way up. Because now not only is everyone got to get paid, but now we're also having to pay them extra to repair damage. We got to pay the immune system. We got to pay our white blood cells, the military. We got to pay for all of that. Energy needs go way up, which means that I've got to increase the amount of energy going in to meet it. I don't want this animal to have to break down stored energy to meet their needs. So during illness and injury, this is where it's going to be key that we need to tailor a nutritional program. And if we don't address the metabolic, meaning the nutritional needs of the pet, it's just going to cause them to not heal as fast, to not get well as fast, and takes years off their life. Pretty exciting. You guys are not as excited as I was hoping you would be, but you guys have come into this profession at a really interesting time. There are also so many additional avenues available to you that were not available to me. You don't have to go into private practice. You can if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. Private practice was wonderful for me. Dog and cat clinic my whole career. But now they have, huge research facilities in every single hospital lab in the medical center. I think I've told you that. You know that every hospital has animals. MD Anderson, yep. Methodist, yep. UTMB, yep. St. Luke's, yep. Texas Heart Institute, big yep. Every single one of them have a research and development department to try new drugs, new surgical procedures, new medical instruments. That's a different avenue you can take. You could get into research and development on the commercial side. For example, Purina. Let's talk about Purina for a second. They're kind of one of my favorites because they were the ones that really, really took the complaints of the public. Hey, we want quality food. And they were like, yep, let's run with it. They have multi-million-dollar research facilities. For example, I think it's either Indiana or Indianapolis. I can't remember. I think it's an I state. I might be making it. But they have multi-million-dollar facility. There's one room that is nothing but cats, and those cats live there for their entire life. But don't feel bad for those cats because they live in the lap of luxury. They have a whole cattery room that is nothing but like platforms for them to walk on, and cat trees, and nothing but a huge wall of windows. Oh my goodness gracious. But they need technicians to assess the cat's health. Because they feed the cats the food and then they assess the health of the cat. They also do things that have nothing to do with the type of food or the nutrients. Like for example, brachiocephalic cat. What am I talking about? Smush face. Well, they got trouble eating, don't they? Smush face cat can't eat normally. And so what we're doing is we're researching different shapes of food that make it easier. Different ingredients that affect the palatability or how the food tastes. And so that's another avenue you can take. Just tons and tons of excitement. You guys, I'm very jealous.
Is that why there's like the small dog food and then there's separate food for chihuahuas?
Yes, it's the size of the kibble that has changed. It's not the formula. A Chihuahua needs the exact same proteins, carbs, fats, etc. than any other dog. It's simply the size of the kibble and the amount that you're feeding. Because technically, hypothetically, I have a Chihuahua and I have a Great Dane, and they're both adults. And I'm just trying to feed them a maintenance diet, meaning I'm not asking them to gain weight and I'm not having them lose weight. Chihuahua and a Great Dane. Could I feed them out of the same pet food bag? Absolutely I could, as long as the kibble was small enough for the Chihuahua to eat. Absolutely I could. It's the amount that I'm going to change. But when we're looking at the breed specifics, what's usually going to be changed up is the size and the density of the kibble. How hard is it?
What about like puppy food? Like there's regular puppy formula, but there's also puppy formula for large breed.
Absolutely. Now, in that case, the formula is different because as puppies are growing and developing, they need more stuff to build skeletons. Calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, zinc. They're growing muscle. We need higher amounts and a higher profile of amino acids. They're growing organ function, so I need to facilitate that. And so the large and giant breed, because they're growing so much faster, are going to have higher amounts of those specific nutrients versus the small breed or regular puppy food. Yeah. And now you're thinking like a tech.
Is there any difference in the nutrition from wet food and dry food?
So the question was, is there any difference in the nutrition between wet and dry food? Yes. The main one is going to be the water content and the concentration of the nutrients. So you're going to see a much higher digestible fat and carbohydrate content with wet food because you're feeding a much smaller amount, but you're getting the same number of calories. It's the water content that is the big deal because canned food contains upwards of 78% water. And if they include terminology like you've all seen it, beef stew, meaty juices, 84% water. What? Yes. That's where I don't recommend feeding canned food as a primary meal unless it's medically necessary. If you have a cat with kidney failure, go ahead, have at it. If you have a dog or a cat that's not eating, go ahead. It's highly palatable because of the higher amounts of fat and carbohydrates. But for just your plain Jane dog, cat, feed it as a treat if you want to, but I don't recommend feeding it as a primary source of nutrition.
What if you mix it?
If you mix it, so what I'm looking at, nutritionally, it's not a big deal. Okay, it's going to give them what they need. Here's what I'm looking at is the teeth. The mechanical action of biting into the kibble helps scrape off plaque and tartar. Let me give you a scenario. Starting, I think I've given you this one already, but I'm going to do it again. Friday morning, I did this yesterday, you all brush your teeth. And then you're not allowed to brush your teeth again until Monday morning. Okay? But the first time when I said this yesterday, I didn't give you a limit on what you could eat. So what sort of things might you want to eat if you haven't brushed your teeth all weekend? Apples, have some water, but like to eat. Apples, carrots. We're all listing crunchy things, aren't you? Now, let me give you a new challenge. You brush your teeth Friday morning, you can't brush them again until Monday afternoon, but you're not allowed to eat anything that has a crispness more than pudding. You can have soup, you could have pudding, you could have flan, you could have custard, anything, but it can't have the density or crunchiness any more than a pudding. How disgusting is your mouth going to feel by Monday? Kind of my point behind feeding dry versus canned.
What if the dog has no teeth?
Oh, if the dog has no teeth, then have at it. Whatever they're going to eat. But they don't necessarily. They don't necessarily have to eat canned food. My dog Maisie, who you've met virtually, has very few teeth. She's got worst dog mouth of any dog I've ever had in my entire life. The first time I gave her a dental, we extracted 11 teeth. Oh, that's not all. Second time I gave her a dental, we extracted 13 more, including her upper fourth premolars. That doesn't even include the teeth that she just randomly loses out of her mouth every now and then. So she's got her 4 canines, and she's got like 1 or 2 incisors. She's got no, from like premolar 2 back, nothing. She's got nothing there. She eats dry food. Oh yeah, and chewies. And she loves rawhide chewies. She kind of gums them to death, but
So
someone told me that rawhide is not good for dogs.
So when I say rawhide, the ones that I give are called a pressed rawhide, meaning that when the dog is gumming them, they get soft. You know, the ones that.
What exactly is rawhide?
So rawhide is the hide. The hide, bovine hide. That's the underlying connective skin that's
So why-
dried out.
Why wouldn't that be good for a dog?
So depending on the rawhide, some rawhide bones, like the great big ones with the knots on either end, what happens is they chew the bone and the knot comes free and they swallow the knot whole. And then it becomes obstructed. You get stuck in the GI tract. Some of the rawhides are so incredibly hard that it fractures their teeth. You ever heard a dog chewing on a rawhide so hard you can hear their jaw creak? It's gonna break their teeth. And then finally you have some rawhides that will break off in a sharp shard, like the pig's ears.
Yeah.
They break off and then they swallow it and it just slices them all the way down. So it's getting the right kind of rawhide. I like the dingo treats. They're these tiny little, they look like a straw.
Just feel like
They wrap around, there's a soft, meaty center, but there's this little bit of chewy that wraps around in a spiral. That's what I give them.
Are you saying pig ears are bad too?
Pig ears are not the best thing for you to feed them. Again, it's going to depend on the dog. If you have a dog who sits and chews it until it becomes this gooey, ooey mess, that's not a big deal. If you have the dogs who are cranking down and breaking off parts of the pig's ear, that's a problem. So you're going to have to assess your own animal. But what's really funny is Poppy. So I get these dingo treats and she loves them, but she hates the middle part. So she'll eat the wind of rawhide, and then I'll go under my bed, because that's her Poppy cave. And there will be like, the last time I cleaned it out was like 2 weeks ago at the beginning of break, and there had to have been 7 or 8 of just the middles. She doesn't like them, she doesn't want them, but she also doesn't want anyone else to have them.
What's your opinion on like rehydrating dried kibble, like putting water into it?
Oh, absolutely. If you have an animal who has some sort of compromise, put a little bit of water in it, soften it up a little bit. For Maisie, that's what I did. I first fed her canned food after her dentals, and then transitioned her to dry, but I did wet it down until it was kind of mushy, and then transitioned her back to dry. So our overall goal from companion animals, we want them to live for as long as we can possibly get them to live with a quality of life. There is a big difference between quality and quantity of life. That's something that we're going to have to assess for ourselves. And as I said, we have extended the average lifespan. It's now not unheard of to have animals living well into their teens. The oldest cat I ever saw was nearly 24. Nearly 24. The oldest dog was a dachshund, and he lived to be nearly 22. With cancer. God, that dog did not want to die. He did not want to die. Little dachshund, we diagnosed him with a very aggressive form of cancer when he was, I want to say 11 or 12. Very aggressive form of cancer. We gave him a year. Okay, so he was about 12 years old. Then he hit 13, 14, 15, 16. We had a big party at the clinic because he was now driving age. We gave him a little driver's license. We had a picture of him behind the wheel of the car. On his 21st birthday, we threw another big party. We shut down the clinic after hours, invited all of our good clients, and threw him a 20, because now he could drink. Not that he obviously give him anything to drink, but. And the owner's like, you gave me a year. 10 years ago. I can't get rid of this dog. crazy, absolutely crazy. Now, a big difference between our companion animal feeding, where we do want to lengthen their life and improve the quality, food animal. Food animals are the animals we use as food. Cows, right? We slaughter them, grind them up, and we eat them. Food animal nutrition is very, very different. There's no such thing as a 20-year-old beef cow. That would be gross, and I'm not getting paid for that. Me as a rancher, I only get paid when I take these guys to slaughter, and I get paid by the pound. So my goal with food animal, get them fat, get them grown, put them on my plate, wrap them in bacon. Okay, that was a little crass. I do admit.
Do you know how much they get per pound?
It varies. It varies. But I'm only getting paid, and that's why the average life of a beef cow is 2 years. They normally go to slaughter about 2 years of age because that's when they finish growing. Oh gosh. All right, time flies when we're having fun, you guys.